What's up? What's up, wheelers, non-wheelers, and whatever else people describe themselves as Sapphire Steel enjoyers. So the deck's dead, because Hiram got banned. It's not dead, or the color combo is not dead. Of course, it's gonna have a major sort of restructuring. I think we have to look back on the way the deck was played before Fortisville was around. Remember, it was a set 3 or 4 card. I can't remember. But there was a time before we played Fortsphere. There's always been a time when we play Hiram, so that's a bit more of a change. And of course, when you take the Fortsphere out, it does kind of completely change your game plan on using things like Tamatowers, dime tapping for loads of lore, and of course using Hirams or using any sort of draw-based engine around items. But of course, the first list I got on the screen is a wheel or is a ramp list. I've got a couple other lists. Of course, they will be Kiwi because I think, in my opinion, before the ban, the strongest version of Sapphire Steel was a ramp list. Was a no wheel list, one that was like looking like Sky's list, a Cheater list, one that was looking like Justin or Attack for Twos list, which was based on like ramping on two and getting a Scrooge out early. But the game plan's completely changed because we're not focusing around having 8 of these cantrip items anymore. So I think what we have to do is, this is a concept idea. By the way, I have one rep on this deck, if that. Just a one practice game with it. I just really wanted to get a sort of a concept idea out there so I can talk from my points, and I think the best way to illustrate that is by putting some cards on the screen. So the way that Sapphire Steel, there was a time before, I'm going to say before Daisy was around, where Sapphire Steel could generally be built as just a control-based list. It didn't have to focus on aggro diming. It didn't have to focus on just extreme ramp finish the game. All it really had to focus on was controlling the board and locking out quite a lot of matchups, and those mainly being the Steel matchups and Ruby Amethyst was like the matchups it could lock out of the game. Of course, Ruby Sapphire couldn't, but even at that time, Ruby Sapphire was not as popular. It hadn't really come together as a full deck. I don't think Ice Block was out or something. I think it was just CC they were working with. Um, so there was a time when we could be a full control based list, and I think what we really want to do is just look at doing that again, and then getting the win across the line with the Mukduk Manners. So if you can look at this, and as again I say, completely just sort of a concept idea for a list. If you were to do something like play Smee or Cheater on two, maybe if you played Robin Hood or Happy on one, Smee or Cheater on two, Mickey on three, and then you've got a Cogsworth set up, and then everything you play from there on is going to be having resist value. You've got some cantrip top ends, you've got like the Gaston and stuff like that. You get a whole new world and you get a full fresh set of cards in your hand. You get a Robin Hood shift and you can like start controlling the board and you'll get that card draw. And then of course you've got this like scrying cards as well, like the Develop Your Brains, Simbas, and like Visions of the Future to find the exact cards you want. Again, completely just concept sort of ideas. I think the more you played with it, the more you could go. Maybe this list needs like Along Came Zeus or something in there, or maybe it needs Hades, maybe it needs some answers like that. But I think for now, I would definitely like start with it and then go right. Can I afford to put Along Came Zeus in here? I seem to be playing into a lot of green decks. No, I can't. So okay, what more answers can I put in here? Can we put Hades in there for things like Shark because we're still playing into like DKP lists, or just for anything at the top end that you just really want to remove off the board, Hades would be very good for that. You might be going that Happy's not really working for me here, and on turn one I have 7 chances to even play Robin Hood or Develop Your Brain. You could put the Fire the Cannons in there. Take out the Happy, put the Fire the Cannons in. Then you're working with the Onyx. You have to switch around the Onyx, I think. But I think you can always go a little bit further because you do play Fishbone Quill. Maybe you're not really like the Mickey as much, and maybe you go, hang on, there's that quirky Pleakley card, and you could maybe do a game plan where your one drops are all just like Simba and other like maybe it could be a Happy just to threaten the Diablo, and then they don't have the Diablo, and you do like a Pleakley on two, so you play Cheater, Pleakley, Cogsworth, and then at that point you have a fairly decent board to start trading up with, and putting some real control on. You put the Beast down, you start drawing cards. Put a Gaston, you get another card back. And then you get a whole new world, and you can keep the tempo going. I think there is loads of ways we can build it. I think the main way to look at it is we probably won't be doing the dime tap stuff as much anymore. But again, we did Mukduk Manners and just full control for quite a while. I mean, that was sort of Sky's approach to Sapphire Steel for a while. was, we're just going over them, completely slamming down manas. Ruby Amethyst couldn't really be prepared you. You can protect the manas with like Tinkerbell and Simbas and stuff like that. And then they're at a point where your opponent either has to run things into the mana and not gain lore, and then you can sort of keep controlling the board there. Maybe some strength for the Rage of Fire in there. I think if the deck's quite character dense right now as well. Maybe not a lot of cheaper characters, but you can maybe get to 3 or 4 wide and sing strength from the Mickey and take something out. So I think there's some very interesting ways to build it, and I like the Robin Hood shift line because if you're not going to ramp, maybe you just brick or whatever because there are 16 unlinkables in here. Um, you can get the early whole new world out, completely disrupt them, and then play from there. Start playing some more advantage, start slamming some more things down. So I think definitely ramp has like many options in this format. I'm yet to see many of the sets that it is fundamentally fascinating, and I think we won't actually get many of the set 7 cards that we can play. We could maybe try 4 Popsicles, 4 Bells, and just try and see if we get the high roll. And if we do, that's great. And if we don't, we just save those Popsicles and maybe run Tamatoa again, the 6 cost one, just so we can recycle them. And then maybe we might look at like including a one-off dime and 4x vision, so we could find the dime and then play a dime out for free. And then they've got a clock where every turn we tap. But then again, we'd be looking at things like maybe we'd have to add Bell in the set 1 Bell that quest for 5 if you have 10 ink or more, because we probably want a lot of more dime targets. And even in here, I haven't included any Pete's because there was a lot of cards. But a Pete is very much a great card. We could include maybe 2 to 4 copies in here, but I just wanted to sort of share a concept of different cards we can put in there. And I think if a lot of our cards are replacing themselves, things like Cheacher, that's pretty good. I think you could even cut the Cheaters completely and put like Talas and other cards that are just on play replace themselves, on play and they give you another card. As long as that's card ink, as long as that card is ink, sometimes that's just fine for you. I'm a bit wary about being a full whole new world deck in a green sort of. The direction of the meta is going quite green. Um, but I think, yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that maybe the Bell was the only real card we get from set 7 because what has actually technically happened is we've got like 2 of the best Sapphire Steel cards we ever could have imagined with the Scrooge and the Tamatoa, and then of course the ban sort of affects it, so they're weaker cards to play in the deck. So it's unlikely that we missed any other good cards because we got the best cards we could have in our set. There are legendaries as well. Um, so it's very unlikely, that we are going to go back and look at the set and go, oh well, yeah, what about these cards that we had a look over? No, I think maybe with set 7 we just aren't going to get any cards because the ban affects the cards that we got that were good, if that makes any sense. But yeah, definitely going back to look at this more control-based direction of the deck, and using the manas to sort of finish the lore. Of course, at that point we're not far off what a DKP RB list is doing in the sense that we're just using manas, but they've got the shark. So you might get that argument of why would we not just play DKP list? I think you would have to look at the idea of we get a whole new world, which is just like the best way to draw 7 new cards. We get all the steel removal options. I think Tinkerbell and Simba are great right now. There's a lot of purple steel running around. There's a lot of amber steel. There's a lot of steel decks that are just going to try and run away with it. I think even like Robin Hood, Tinkerbell, and Simba, when Bruno is not in effect, or maybe they've run out of Brunos, they're just great cards versus Emerald Steel as well. So I think we still have a lot of benefits. The access to grab your swords is probably in the meta. Very under the weather by the way, sorry. In the meta, like the best answer for Prince John. And as long as we don't have it in hand and we can have a singer set up, like Cogsworth is just a constant singer setup, we can play Visions of the Future, find it, sing it, and then remove stuff on board. So this, yeah, I say completely a concept. It was from looking at other people's directions to the list as well. I think a lot have gone back to the idea of, well, hold on, we had quite a lot of good steel control cards, and because red is being less popular in the meta, maybe we can start trying to play them again. Because they won't just like, Robin Hood won't just get removed and be no value. Like he's actually going to be a very good card against purple steel, emerald steel, amber steel. Ruby Steel as well. These cards could be interesting again as long as Medusa doesn't come back. But yeah, just sort of a concept approach to it, and I've got 2 other lists to cover because I think as much as I said before the ban, the ramp Scrooge builds of Sapphire Steel definitely were leagues above performing than the other lists. I think Kiwi was very, very good, but I think because of Ruby Sapphire's popularity, and that matchup, even when you put the tech cards in, it wasn't improving it too much. Wasn't was just a struggle. It was the thing of, I think there was a load of decks like, so Kiwi and Amber Steel was another one, and there's a few others as well that, sorry, I can't think of off the top of my head, that they are very, very good decks and they perform very well at what they do, but because they all just fold to Sisu Coil and then them having about 50 cards in hand because Hiram drawed them about 50 cards. It was pretty impossible to beat them, so it made it very hard, and especially as like 40 to 50% meta shares of Ruby Sapphire was appearing at events. It didn't matter how many Benjers and Wendy Darlings we put in, they just had too many resources to deal with it. You know, they're at a point where they could B prep just one Wendy Darling, maybe Maui Shark get it back, or just draw a bunch of cards so they could draw their next Be Prepared. So it didn't even matter anyway. But yeah, I think right now Kiwi is probably the best Sapphire Steel approach to the color combo. I think everyone's going a bit more low to the ground. Everyone's returning back to sort of dock style decks and like fighting for those early strength removals to take out a 2-drop and start winning the board. And I think that's great. That's the kind of gameplay I like in the game. I find it a bit more skillful than just like ramping to a very high amount, getting a bunch of resources in your hand, and just basically trading blows until one of you runs out of removal options. I don't find that very fun. Yeah, I think this is the list that I'm sort of playing right now, and it's the list that sort of friends have asked me like why this list, and I said if I had an event tomorrow to play it, this is the one I would bring. Um, I think it's not running the Bell package. I think without the Fortosphere, it's still too early. I mean, I got the news same time, and like without the Fortosphere around, it's kind of hard to tell the maths on if Bell turn one with just the pop schools is good enough. And I don't think we're in any position to start running cards like Last Cannon or what are the other cards? Last Cannon or Shield of Ardeen or whatever it's called, Ardale. I don't know what it's called. Sorry. Another one-drop item that doesn't replace itself. I don't think we're in a position where we can start playing those cards. They'd just be too negative, and the fact that this deck doesn't really draw any cards if we're playing a card, and then replacing it with a Bell, it's just we're just down so much there. It took 3 cards out of our hand on turn one, and we didn't replace one like we would have done with Popsicle and Fortisphere. So I think this approach is very, very fine. I think you're probably seeing like all my lists, Happy is just going to be there because it's just feels so relevant right now with all of the Diablo lists around. Just getting Happy down turn one to sort of lock them out and say, right now you need Cove, or now you need Shift Singlet the Storm Rage on, or now you need something else. You can't just shift your Diablo. So for Diablo being such a high roll, if they need 1-drop, 3-drop, and they need the action, they also now need another thing to answer the Happy. So yeah, I think it's just really much an instant include. I find that this list all rounds just pretty solid. It's great to play John Silver again. We get to play this more aggro game style. So yeah, this is the one I sort of just say if you've got like an event coming up, just probably just pick this list up and it'll be fine. But I think this video is a bit more about exploring different lists and trying out new stuff. And this is a list from a player called Wochuk, who's just really good player, really awesome guy. And just seeing him post on Twitter a couple lists, and I think I don't know too much. I think maybe Kiwi or Sapphire Steel aggro is a bit of a pet deck for him. He seems to pick it up and tweet about it from time to time, usually at the start of a set. Well, he did at the last start of the set. He was one of the first I saw posting about an Alice Pluto combo, and that was at the time that me and Justin were like practicing it in Discords, and we were like, oh, okay, it's cool that other people are spotting that this is a pretty good line. And I had just seen this list as well, and I thought it was very, very interesting. I think there's some cool stuff in there. I think now that it's basically when I'm recording this, it's the weekend, and I do practice on Sundays. I have time to try out the. I practice on Sundays with my locals. Um, I have time to try out the Pop School Bell and include the Let the Storm and Strength of the Raging Fire. I probably in my list will include 4 Let the Storms and 4 Strength of the Raging Fire, and include the Bell Port package, just because I want to see sort of. I can run the statistics and everything like that, but it also comes down to how I'm going to mulligan. Like, if it's a full send for Bellport turn one, I think it's like 40% or something like that. And then a 46 on the play on the draw. But you're gonna do things like probably keep a 2-drop. If you get another 1-drop, you might not keep the Porp or whatever. And like if you keep the Bell, how deep do you go for the Porp? All these other little interesting things. So I think sometimes it feels like I think the statistics are around 40% on the play, and then it's 46% on the draw to get Bell Pop turn one if you do the full mulligan. But I think sometimes you just need to sleeve up the cards and play it and see how it feels for you and see how it feels in the list. Yeah, there's no real like odds on this being a more consistent version of the one that I've just mentioned here. But I think as we got a new set and as we got new cards, and before the ban when we had the Fortisphere, Bell was just proven to be such a powerhouse of a card. You know, all purple decks basically would fall into her and let the Storm Rage on. Um, it's just a really good card. And of course, when new sets come out, new cards, I want to try them, I want to play them. And we had them for a while, and yeah, it worked with Fortisphere. But now, I won't lie, these two cards being removed feels like we're in a completely different meta. It feels like a bigger meta change than some of the previous sets. It's crazy. But yeah, besides that, there's just so much I like with this list. I think he's on a fairly decent uninkable count. He's on 12, 4, 8, 12. 14, 16. So yeah, he's added the Mulans in there, which is good because it means you can do a bit more of a heavy mulligan. And if you have a Mulan, you can start cleaning up the hand a bit and dumping some of the uninkables. Which, to be honest with you, with the double docks that you get in hand, I think Mulan is a card I want to start trying in or start playing again. Um, I think it's really good, and I think there's another card in here that's worth mentioning is the Jafar, and I think Jafar is good, and it's another card that I want to test out. I pretty much will probably sleeve this up tomorrow if I don't have time to build my own list, my own Bell list, because I think what Jafar is good for is he can buff like say a Calhoun or a Pete or anything that has 3 strength and take out Space Pirate Pete, which is just a card is actually something that Roy Chuck mentioned to me, and I was like, oh wow, actually yeah, because right now I've been playing in Space Pirate Pete, and like majority of the games, I'm like, Prey doesn't have it, or Prey they don't have the card, and then if they do, I'm like, right, I need to set up the Alice Pluto, so they run the Pete into the um Pluto, and then they take their 4 damage, and then I find the extra 2 damage because it will have resist 1 as well. I find it and remove it that way. Um, Maybe the Let the Storm would be quite cool for that actually. Um, but yeah, I think the Jafar is really cool for that. It's sort of for me though as well. It's like, is Space Pirate Pete going to be played at a 4x or a 2x? Like, how afraid do I have to be of it? Like, is Jafar a good enough card to include just for that one other card, or does it give me application into other matchups, into other cards, into other like aspects of the game? So that's really cool. Of course, this is a bit more control based if you're looking at it. Like, you've got the Imperial Bow in there, there's a bit more card cycling going on in there. You can still lock them out of the game, especially compared to this one where it's like we have the 14 5 drops where we just play the strong curve out and then we start playing big bodies every turn just to get over the finish line. I think Gantu is fairly strong right now, which is weird to say because it is a steel meta we're kind of heading into, and even in the matchups where they don't, it's like they tend to have. We don't talk about Bruno, which I'm talking about green purple, um, or they'll have like Elsa, the 5 cost Elsa. So it's very interesting. That I feel Gantu's pretty good. I think because he just gets you so much lore so quickly. I think Alice Ward protecting him is very good right now as well. And if they don't have the answer for it, he just gets so much value. Um, so yeah, I think definitely I'm going to try something like this. The Jafars are cool. I a little on the fence about the bows. I understand why we're heading into a meta where it's going to be a lot of evasives and like basically for a lot of these decks, if you can remove the um, what's it called Diablo, you pretty much should be winning, and also the genie as well. Which, to be honest with you, some of the like the weirdly the best way for us to deal with a genie has always been Calhoun plus Imperial Bow to take out the genie, but it always feels weird. They still get to quest with it, because I'd rather go 4 wide sync strength on it. But genie is also another card that I'd like to look at, try and see if we have answers for it. And I think maybe including the bell is good because we can have that singer set up and we don't have to go 4 wide, wait a turn. Um, or, I think maybe we could play the P on 3, then go 4 wide. But maybe including more 1 drops and trying to use the bell to sing strengths earlier to take out genies. Because I'm weirdly seeing Blurple played quite a bit now. And them just getting those early genies out is just quite good. I'd say weirdly, I think Blurple's actually in a fairly decent spot. So yeah, the main targets are sort of like Space Pirate, Pete, Genie, and Diablo, and trying to think about those when you build a deck. Um, so yeah, I think these are some interesting lists to look at. Interesting concepts as well. I think Sapphire still as a color combo is probably has to adapt way more than Ruby Sapphire does. I think Ruby Sapphire's Sisu control list maybe is quite out of order for a little bit. Which in my opinion is pretty great because I just don't. I think we'll look at that list like it was a fever dream. Like the fact that we let that run riot for like 3 sets was just bonkers. Like a deck that had no bad matchups was just mad. Um, but like now we've got, yeah, I think Sapphire still has to adapt a bit more. And again, like Ruby Sapphire is very lucky that they had the DKP list, and we've kind of got the Kiwi list. They might not be the versions that you want to play, but it doesn't mean the color combo is dying out anytime soon. It just means those decks might not be like the ramp versions might not be that good right now in the meta. And there are also more sets to come, but for right now, I think these lists are pretty good concepts and pretty good ideas to get you thinking and get you playing some Sapphire Steel.